Welcome everybody today. My name is Emily Spranger. I'm a graduate learning specialist in the Graduate Studies Support Center. So grateful to have Dr. Linda Collins come back and present for us. Very few housekeeping items. Remember, we are in a meeting format today, so for best flow of the presentation, please remain muted unless you are called upon. We are recording our session and we will absolutely post this in the Graduate Studies Support Center Skill Up page and also on our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe and never miss a webinar. Dr. Linda Collins is joining us today to discuss using Microsoft Word, tips and little known useful features. We want you to use the chat, so please have conversation in the chat. Ask your questions in the Q&A, and as time permits, Dr. Collins will address questions along the way. This is a hands-on presentation. There was a document that was provided to folks who registered for the event. I sent it about 24 hours ago. I am going to go ahead again and just after my introduction, resend the event or the document to anyone who has registered for this event. So apologies for duplicates, but I want to make sure you have it. And I'm going to let Dr. Collins explain how you can utilize that doc throughout the presentation. I think that about does it for my housekeeping items, Dr. Collins. So I'm going to pass this right on over to you. And if anyone needs me, you can find me in the chat.
Thank you, Emily, and thanks for all that important information. This is going to be hands-on. However, if you don't want to do hands-on right now, you will have that document and you can go back and take a look at this recording and then do some of it. And then if you do have other questions, I'm always open to take questions later on, even beyond having the webinar. So we don't have a lot of time because there's a lot of stuff. And, you know, every time we start using Word, then we find other things that we want to talk about. So what I'm doing today is you should be able to see three screens. On the left should be the welcome to tips and useful features in Word. And I will expand this just a little bit while we get ready to get started. And I hope everybody can see that on the screen, and you can also expand it if you'd like. And there were a couple of questions about, is there a PowerPoint presentation that goes with this? Instead, I'm using Word for my presentation because today is an exercise on Word. But you will, again, be able to have all this information afterwards. We're going to talk about a couple of things here, and just kind of as an overview, we're going to do a little bit about readability statistics. Students ask a lot about the readability statistics, especially doctoral students, because sometimes we'll say, you're going to be doing an informed consent, or you're going to be doing this other product in it, and you're going to have to make the readability that's going to fit for the people who are participating. So for example, when you're working with the IRB, they're going to say, if you have students in 10th grade, let's say, well, your readability needs to be at least 3 grades below that. So we'd have to come out as 7th grade. So a lot of times people are saying, well, how do I do that? And others know how to do it, but then how do I capture that and crop it? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to set this up. You don't have to do this now, but if you'd like to follow along, you can certainly do this. We're going to set it up in options, and then we're going to go ahead and take this document and we'll do a spell check. It'll give us our readability statistics, and then I'll show you how to capture it. So first, I'm going to go over here to File, and I'm going to go down to Options. Now, another thing is there's so many different Word versions out there, and people have Macs and people have different things. So if it doesn't look exactly the same, don't be alarmed, and I can help you with this later on if you need to. Most of us are probably using 365, but not everybody is. Okay, so I have clicked on Options, and you'll see in Options, there's General Display, Proofing, all kinds of cool things. If you haven't been in here before, this will be a new learning experience. So you can go ahead and click on Proofing. And let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit more for you so that you can see it. I guess it doesn't do that in there. I never tried to enlarge it before, but hopefully you'll be able to see it or expand it on your own computer. So if you take a look down under Proofing, go down to where it says when correcting spelling and grammar in Word. Now, this is not set as an option when you get this originally. You can check spelling while you type, make grammar errors, mark grammar errors as you type, frequently confused words. You can have all of those clicked, but usually it doesn't say show readability statistics. So if yours does not show this, you will want to check this right now by clicking on it and saying, okay. And then it will take us back to our document. So what you can do now is you can go ahead and do your spell check. Right here, I already have spell check that I have set on my ribbon, but you can also go in here and do spelling and grammar. If you go to the review tab and then click on spelling and grammar. So it's going to go through here on the right, if you can see this, what the different scores are, and we should be able to give our readability statistics. They have just upgraded this, so let's take a look to see what we have for our scores. Resume function. I have not seen this, so this is a welcome to me. But if you look over here to the left, you can see where it says the readability statistics. Can everybody see that? I'm going to go ahead and see if I can enlarge this again just a little bit now that we're back in the document, and it won't let me because it's showing me this information. But this is what you do. This is actually going to go into your document. You get the readability statistics, and it's going to show you the different pieces of readability. For the way this one is set up, we're going to do this again because I've got the Word document highlighted. I apologize for that. So we're going to go ahead and just do the spelling and grammar. And it shouldn't be showing this. Let's go ahead and move on. 19 remaining. We'll go through all of those until it's at the very end. They've done some upgrades to this, so it looks a little bit different than you might have been used to before. So, should be able to show our stats. And why it's not showing, I don't know. I live by Murphy's Law. I don't know if you guys do that as well, but we will get this figured out. Wow. Well, happy days with this. We did see some reading statistics before, and what you're going to do when you get finished with this is you're going to be able to copy this. We'll go ahead and ignore these and see if it'll go ahead and bring it in the end. If it's not working, then we'll move on to something else. Okay, so here's our statistics, and it tells you how many words. And sometimes you need to do that because if you're doing like your problem statement, it can only be 350 words. That's going to be helpful for you. But most importantly for today, we want to see what is the Flesch-Kincaid grade level. And you can see here that it says it's 13.3. And let's say that, oh my, I needed to have it at 10. That's going to tell you need to go in and make some revisions. But if 13.3 works, that's fine. But now what do I do with it? What you want to do at this point is you can do a print screen. And then I'm going to take us and I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do it in this document just because Zoom doesn't like me to change back and forth to other documents, but you could create a new document. And then I'm going to do a Control V and paste that print screen in. And the next thing that you will do is double click on it. And you will see that it takes you to picture format up on the ribbon. You will go over to crop, click on crop, and then you get the different little bars. And then you drag that one down. You can go down to the bottom bar, drag that one up, go to the right and drag that one over, and then go to the left and drag this one over as well. Now you're going to go, well, I don't really see that. And it is really tiny. So what you can do is you can click on it and then go to the lower right. And there you go. You have your readability statistics. And then I could crop that a little bit more and so forth. And then you can take that, copy it, put it into your document or put it into another document to show the readability excuse me, statistics. And if you have more questions about that, you can let me know. And I know that was a little quick, but I also know we don't have a lot of time. So you'll be able to take a look at this recording later on. So we had a couple of questions, and one question was copying or entering a table or an Excel spreadsheet and or a PowerPoint slide into Word. It's really easy to do it, but it's just like anything. If you have a brand new, like I say, if I have a board game and people don't tell me what the rules are, I won't know how to do it. But I'm going to show you real quickly here how we can do this. And it's really kind of fun. So if you want to take a look at the lower right-hand corner, I have an Excel spreadsheet here, and I'm going to kind of bring it up a little bit more. The way that you copy a spreadsheet into a Word document is to make sure that you have Word open and the document where you want to copy it to, and that you have Excel open and you have your spreadsheet. And you will go over to Excel, and I already had it highlighted, but I'll highlight again, highlight it, and you can use your right click, or you can go up into copy, and you can go ahead and copy this and then go exactly where you want it into Word, and then do a Control V or a paste. Ta-da! It comes over perfectly formatted for you, which is sort of kind of in APA 7. I'm not going to guarantee it's exactly APA 7, but you can see that it came right over, which is really kind of neat. And then the next one, we're going to do PowerPoint. And I'm going to put it right here. And whenever you want to copy something in from another Word file, you want to make sure that your pointer in the file where you're copying it to is exactly where you want it, because it's only going to go where you tell it to go. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this a little bit, bring out. I'm going to use my PowerPoint. So what you need to do, first of all, in PowerPoint, to be able to copy a slide or more than one slide, is you need to go up here to the ribbon and click on View. Then you want to select Slide Sorter, and I have one slide I'm going to pick. And then I'm going to right click, and I should be able to copy this. And we're going to go ahead and go back over to the Word document and do Control V, or you can do paste. And there it is. I have the exact slide that I had in PowerPoint in Word now, and it's all part of my Word document. So it's really kind of cool. And isn't it neat that it's not only cool, but it's pretty easy to do. Also, just to let you know, up here at the very beginning, this is called Word Art. And that's very easy to do as well. And if we have time later, we can take a look at that. Okay, so we're back in here. And I have not been looking at the chat, but Emily, did anybody have a question about this, or are we okay to move on?
Yeah, we did have some questions. That it does kind of go in line with inserting in a graphic. I popped in a resource that can be useful for infographic options in our center, and then Dr. Gary Walker Roberts also suggested some great resources on YouTube tutorials. I'm going to pop a few more options in there as well, but we do have a question about how to make a figure stay on the same page as the text in Word without having to shrink the figure. So if we do get to that.
Okay, and that will be great. And also, Dr. Gary, thank you for all the resources. So glad that you're here today. In regard to doing a graphic, it can be a little bit different. You can even do a wrap around a graphic if you need to. You can even shrink it a little bit if necessary, or sometimes it runs over and you can do a Control Enter to keep everything on the same page, because you're going to do a hard page break. So if we have time later, we can go ahead and do that, but I don't want to run out of time quite yet.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Okay, so here I'm going to ask you, do you see a second Word document on the right that says, come join us for a hands-on session?
Yes, we do.
Yay. I never know when it's going to work, so I always want to make sure that I ask. Now here are the instructions, and it's pretty easy. It looks like it's really long, but basically all you need to do is make sure that you have your original document open, and then you have the document you want to copy from open. You go to the document that you want to copy from and highlight what you would like to copy. You can either do a Control C to copy or right click to copy. And then all you need to do next is go back to the Word document, place your pointer exactly where you want to have that information. I'll do this so it's all on the one page. So you can see my pointer is right after the title. And then I'm just going to copy that in either by right clicking, and I can copy it in, or I'm sorry, I can paste it in. And you can do it this way and use your paste options, or you can just hold down the Control key and press V, and it comes in. And again, all of this information is in here for you. I'll make sure that you get this document that I've made modifications to so that you can see this as well if you'd like to do that while you're following along. Do we have any questions about this?
1 second here. Specifically about this. No, I'm sorry, the chat was going off. They have questions about the snipping tool as well for when you copied the graphic right before this. Can you use a snipping tool as well?
Yes, if you'd like to use a snipping tool and you're used to using that, that works perfect, and you're no problem using that. I'm just demonstrating today how you can do things right in Word without using any add-ons or anything, but no, perfect.
Thanks, Dr. Collins.
Okay, so this next one is setting up hanging indentations. And I have to tell you that next to anthropomorphisms that come up in grammar, hanging indentations come up as a question a lot. And I just really love it because another thing that we can do that it doesn't take very long to do it. But the first thing that I'm going to do here so that you can see how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and expand the screen. And then I'll take it up another notch here. Okay, and then the next thing that I want to do is show you up here on the ribbon, we have the Home tab. So you want to be at the Home tab to be able to do this, because then you can see it in action and what's going on. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go over to where it says paragraph. And up here, there's a backwards facing P, and those are for paragraph marks, and the P means paragraph. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and now you're going to see what are called attributes, kind of the formatting marks. So you can see here that when you see this backward facing P, that means somebody has pressed the enter key or return, making what's called a hard return. So what we have right now is all these hard returns, and they're at the very end of each one of these paragraphs, but they're not doing hanging indentation that we'd like to do. So the way that you can do hanging indentation, I'm going to show you 2 ways. Is this first one here is if I had just typed something and did word wrap, and word wrap is where you continue to type and it goes on to the next sentence, or it goes on to the next line, and you can continue and continue. If you don't use word wrap and you put an enter right here, it will do the same thing unless you want to put things in there like hanging indentation, and it won't change it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to highlight a couple of these, and this is what you will do. This is how you do it after you have wanting to use hanging indentation. You've already typed all the information. Now you want to do hanging indentation. So I've highlighted the ones that I want to do hanging indentation for. I go to the Home tab by clicking. So if you were in Insert or Draw or whatever, you would go to the Home tab. You go over to Paragraph, and you want to go beyond the general to indentation. Also, I have a video on this that I can share as well on how to do hanging indentation. But what you do is go to Indents and Spacing, look down where it says Indentation. You can see here where it says Special. You click on this and you say Hanging, and you click on it. Ta-da! Done. That's it. So it works really cool. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to show you some other ways to do this, because this is how you're going to do this if you've already typed everything. But if you haven't typed everything, what you can do is you can start it with the hanging indentation. So we have this saying that there's none here. We can click on hanging indentation. And what this means is from forever, ever, and ever in this document, whatever you type will then be set up as hanging indentation. So I will type until the end of this line, and you will see that it automatically sets it up as hanging indentation. So how cool is that? Now you're probably saying, yeah, now I'm looking at all this formatting stuff though, and it's kind of driving me crazy. When you're done with the formatting and you want to turn that off, you just go back to home, click on the backward spacing key, and ta-da, it is there. One more thing about hanging indentation, and then we'll move on to the white space. Sometimes people will do hanging indentation by putting a return in. So again, I'm going to go back to the P just briefly, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to put in a return. And that's okay. And then I want to do hanging indentation, so I'll put in a tab. So will that look the same? Yes, it will look the same. But the question might be, why would I want to use hanging indentation? And I will show you. So let's say we needed to spell this out a little bit more or give additional information within the United States. As you can see right now, I have this citation, but it's not formatted correctly any longer because it's seeing that return at the end is right here, and then the tab. So if you add anything or take anything away, that won't work as well as you might like. And that might have seemed a little bit confusing, but it's because whenever there's what's called a hard return at the end, it's going to follow along with that information. We did not put a hard return at the end. We left it and we just invoked the hanging indentation. And there it is. Again, it's finished. Okay, so next, we have something coming on the screen that shouldn't be there. Okay. So if there's additional questions about this, also I have about a 5-minute video on this that I can share with you as well. The same thing with eliminating extra white spaces, especially for doctoral candidates. Have you ever received information back from a SME or your chair and saying, this looks great, but you have extra white spaces? And then you go, well, but no, I don't. Because look, see, I don't have extra white spaces. I can even put the P on and it doesn't show I have extra white space. So how do you get rid of this? The way you get rid of this is by going to the beginning of either the sentence or the topic that you have, and then highlighting through the first word in the next sentence. And so what you will do again is go to the Home tab. You'll go over to Paragraph, click on Paragraph, and then we're going to see why there's a spacing issue. You'll go down to spacing and it says before 0 point, after 18 point. So how you fix this is to go over to the after, click down until you get to 0 point and click OK, and voila, it's gone. If you want it to be double spaced there, it's the same process. So you would highlight it and you can go to Paragraph, or you can go to Paragraph over here. And you can check your line spacing to say, oh, I wanted it to be double spaced. So quickly, what we'll do here is I'm going to undo this. And this is what we had before. We're going to highlight this topic, go down to the first word. We can either go to Paragraph or right click to get Paragraph. Click on this, and then we see that it says after. We'll do 0. It doesn't show our line spacing, but we know we went double. So we'll do OK and click it, and then there it is. Now it's something that you probably want to do a couple of times just to get used to it. before it makes sense. So we have another one here. This one's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and put the paragraph sign on again. And you can see here that there's 2 paragraph signs. Excuse me. What this means is somebody's actually pressed the enter key twice. And so you don't need to go to paragraph for that yet. What you can do is that you can just go to your next line where it says issues, backspace, put that tab back in again, and you've gotten rid of it. And we shouldn't have any extra spacing, but you can always check by highlighting, going to paragraph, and checking and seeing that it says 0, 0, and double. And so that's kind of the information on that piece. You also see here that there are page breaks. Have you ever kind of gone along and you're like, oh, this is looking good, but then all of a sudden the page break is there and you're like, I'm not sure I want all of that there, or how do I get rid of it? So to get rid of a page break, you put your pointer right in front of that page break, but you have to have the backward facing P on so you can see for sure. And then you can click the delete key and it will just bring up the information from that next page. Now, the other thing that sometimes happens is we're going to go back up here and we're going to take a look at our references. And so we want to have a references page. So I'm going to go ahead and click the center key. We're going to type in references. But as we saw in our template, for those of you that are in the doctoral classes, our references have to go on a separate page. And how do you do that? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, for now, I'll turn this stuff off so you don't have to look at it. Sometimes that can work if you just go return, 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 and you keep returning until now you can see it's on a different page. But the problem with doing that is if we put additional information in, and I'm going to turn those P's back on again so you can see them, then it kind of locks us into the information that we have. So for example, if I wanted to add more onto this page and I press the return and I start typing and typing along, it's going to push that onto another page and not set it up quite correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all those extra returns, press the backspace key to get rid of those returns. And instead of doing all of those returns, you can use the control key and the enter. So it's control enter. You will hold down at the point where you want to go to your next page. And I'm going to go up to the beginning where we have references. This is where I want that new page. I'm going to hold down on the control key and press the enter key one time, and it takes you to a brand new page. And it will be there forever until you say no. And what that means is if you add to the references, it's fine. If you add to this previous page, that's fine too, but it will not join on to this references page unless you get rid of the permanent page break. And that's what you had seen before. We had a permanent page break. When you do the backwards P, you will see it. If you don't want it, you highlight it, press back the backspace key, and it brings it back onto the previous page. You'll be able to practice this and maybe look at this information a little bit more as you continue to go through and make changes. This backwards P may maybe drive you a little bit crazy at first, but that does show you what is going on. And also there's some interesting things that we can do in regard to having DOIs and stuff that we can take care of as well a little bit later on. So are there any questions right now about what we have been doing?
Go
ahead, you love.
I put a question inside. The way you did clearing the 0 before and after, can you do control all the entire document and do it? Or do you have to do section?
Yes.
Section?
Well, okay. So I think your question is, do I have to do these one at a time, or could they all be selected and make it happen? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes. So yes, you can do the Alt key, and then you can go in and apply it to everything. Now, of course, we wouldn't want to apply it to everything in this, because if I did, then it would be doing it to everything that we have here. But if you have a full page of references, then you can certainly do that. So we have all of these references here. If I had the reference page, and we'll see if this works. And I'm going to copy all the references here. I'll do Control C, or you can do right click and copy. I'll go to File, New, and you can let me know, do you see a new document here?
Yes, we do.
Yay! I'm so amazed when Zoom works wonderfully. I mean, I love Zoom, but sometimes it just doesn't do everything. So let's say that you're here. You have all these references. Now we're looking at them, and they're not all quite the way we want them. They're not all hanging indentation. Again, we can do that backwards P to see why. We know first what we want to do is get rid of those extra formatting pieces. And the rest of it looks pretty good. So yes, you're correct. You can hold down the Control key and then press A. It won't affect probably the references here. And then who can tell me what to do next? You'll want to go up here to paragraph. Click on that. Oh, see, we don't even have anything here. We don't have a 0. We don't have an 18. We don't have anything. So what should we do next? We're going to make that a 0. We're going to make the line spacing double, right? But most of all, we're going to come here to indentation and select hanging. Let's see if it works. It's working, but we have one problem here, that we got off a little bit with our formatting. And if that happens, you can always do this. And I'll show you what I did. Let me go ahead and do an undo. And what's happened here is that for whatever reason, we have different formatting, whether it's because it's a new document or what we copied in was a little bit different. But the best thing about it is no worries, because all you have to do is highlight this. We're at home right now. We should, if you are not seeing your ruler, I can show you how to do that. All you have to do is click on this bottom left indent, drag it over, and it's there. And it's cool. But also the really nice thing about Word is, let's say we didn't do it right, and we did all this weird stuff, and then we came here and we messed this up too, which can happen, and it's not at the margin. We're going to put it over here, and you're going, I don't know what to do now. I've got to start all over, but you don't. You just have to do the undo formatting, and everything's back to where it was before. And then you can turn off the backward facing P. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I think that was very helpful for Yolette. Thank you, Yolette, for asking that question.
I was more interested in clearing up the white space. Can you do Control Alt for white space? The way you did?
Yeah, you can. Well, let's go ahead and try it. Let's go back to our other document.
Because I usually do references almost like one by one.
Right, right. We shouldn't have to do that if that is references, but let's go ahead and set up a few things here. I'm going to go ahead and go to paragraph, make this funky, change this to single or whatever we want to do with this. And so if you wanted to do this, let's see how it works, because we've got some extra white space here too. We don't have enough white space there. So let's go ahead and do the Control A, right? Because Control A selects everything. It means select all, and that's why it's the A. And now we have it all selected. What's the next thing we would do? We're going to go to Home. We're going to go to Paragraph. We're going to go up here and we're going to see all kinds of craziness is not there. So if we want it to be 0, before, we would go to spacing and say 0. We would go to after and say 0. If we want it to be double spaced, we'd click this and let's see what happens. Okay. So what happened though is we do have some extra returns that were in there anyway. That was not because we had selected all, but that's just what we had. And you can delete that. But other than that, it should all be set. Did that make sense?
Thank you very much. How do we handle it? Not to have a hanging or a white space because the figure name is, the figure's too large to all fit in one place. So it's part on one page and part on the other. And the big white space, you have to push it down to put the figure so you don't cut, you have your, it's not enough to put the figure at the bottom of the page, and you don't want just the name of figure 5 on one page and the figure on the other. How do we handle that?
Okay, that's a great question. Let's see what we can do with this with the examples that we have. So let's take a look at this. This is not a figure, but it is the table. But we do have this figure above us. Is your question, you want the figure on the same page as your comment?
Yes, and if you didn't do it, what happens if you have a lot of white space because there's not enough room to put everything on that one page? That one.
Correct. Now, sometimes that will happen. If you are doing your dissertation and you have a table that goes from one page to the next, you can do a couple of things. One thing you can do is if you need to, you can split the table. But the other thing that you can do is you actually can, if it's maybe finishing up mid-page, you can go ahead and have the white space and move that table to the next page if you need to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. That helps. Thank you so much.
You bet. And then again, you can double click again because I didn't have this cropped good enough, and you can get in there and crop this back a little bit to make it a lot cleaner. The other thing that you can do with this as well, since we're looking at this, is let's say that you did this and you're really excited that you were able to crop this. You can make this also a JPEG or a PNG file if you want to use Photoshop or you want to use Paint or whatever, just by clicking right, copying it, and then pasting it into another document, and then you can save it as whatever file you want, then insert it that way as well. Okay, so far we have set up our options. We've done a copy of Excel spreadsheet and PowerPoint in, and you can see that we have this here. We have gone through and copied information from one document to another using Word, setting up hanging indentations, using Control-Enter, and eliminating white spaces. So I have a question here for everybody. Does anybody use Google Docs and then transfer it into Word or open it into Word?
That was what I did up until last summer. I never used Word before.
Okay.
So it was like a shock, the differences.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention this because sometimes there's some issues with using Google Docs and then just trying to open it up in Word. If you can save it as a Word document, you can do that. Or if you can do what, like we've talked about, the Alt-A and then copy it into Word, it might help. But my recommendations to students, because you should have access to Word through the college, is if you can, use it, because otherwise things may change. And even if you're using way older versions of Word or an older version of Word for Mac, you might see some of those things change. So if you can use the college authorized Word 365, it's the best because you don't have any problems with it. You may also see it and it might look great, but then somebody else might open it, like your chair or your SME, and then it gets all jumbled up. And that's another reason why you want to use the hanging indentation feature, because you might see it fine, but I might open it up and I'm using 365 and it doesn't look quite right. So I hope that information was helpful. So at this point in time, I'd like to open this up for additional questions or
Great.
go for anything else you'd like to.
Wonderful. Dr. Collins, I will go ahead and field that. And so we have the best flow for our presentation, and there are about 60 persons on this call, so please raise your hand if you would like to speak so we aren't talking over each other. I do have a couple of questions that I would like to ask since we have a little bit of time here. So Dr. Collins, I know we were working on a figure and we had several conversations about that. There's been a couple of questions that have come up about the white space with the figure. And the question is, so is it okay to have extra white space in a dissertation if it's a figure? It doesn't necessarily have to fit on the page with the text. Is that your understanding, or is it best that the student check with the chair?
Oh, and that's a great question. And that really is a chair question. I do serve as a dissertation chair and a SME, and I would check with your chair to make sure that that's exactly how they want it. But if you go and take a look at some of the most recently approved dissertations, that's the best place to kind of check it out to see how it would work. But sometimes you can, if your chair approves it, make that table a little smaller and it can bring it in. You don't want to make it so small they can't see it, but there's some things that you can do with that. So I would recommend that you talk to your chair.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Collins. And then just two more questions in the chat. There was a question, I know we touched on the hanging indents
Yes.
in Word. Is there any recommendation that you have, and forgive me if you're not going to cover this today, that's okay, but is there any recommendation that you have for hanging indents in PowerPoint?
Yes. And yes, you can do that in PowerPoint, but unfortunately, we're not doing that demonstration today. But I could certainly do
Okay.
a video and be able to do it. But yes, you can do it in PowerPoint. You just need to make sure that you have it typed, that it does not have a return at the end, that you highlight it, you press the right, well, if you have a PC, you would click on the right. If not, then you can still go in there and go to home and go to paragraph and do that. I do have a PowerPoint in here, but I don't know if I have anything that I could use for an example, but I'd be happy to make a video on that. It is a little tricky because I know you want to do it on your references pages, especially if you're doing that final oral presentation. So let me go ahead and I'd be happy to make a little video on that, and I can share that with Emily Spranger, and we can go ahead and get that out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. Thanks for bringing it up. And you are probably right. It is probably about those presentations that our students make, especially at the end for the oral defense. Okay, two more questions. Then I see someone has their hand raised. Is it possible that you could talk to us a little bit about how to remove track changes from a document?
Okay, sure. Track changes, usually I right click and get rid of the balloons. But if you're doing track changes, and we don't have it really turned on over here, but if you do have track changes turned on and you're doing this and you're now making changes, and then you say, I don't want to do that anymore, then you can go into track changes and you can either lock it so that there's no changes and nobody else can go and do anything to the document, or you can go over to no markup and click that. And no markup is found on the tab under review. You go over to where it says tracking, and then you can say original. You can go in and show simple markup, or you can say, I'm done, make it go away. And that's because it's there now because I invoked it and made it happen. But yeah, that's how you get rid of the track changes. If you want to do an Alt-A, then you should be able to take those track changes out by doing no markup. Does that help?
Thank you so much, Dr. Collins, for that. Question that I have next is, can you show how to add page numbers in a doc, but not on the cover page and reference page?
Oh, I love that. And does that make you crazy? Because it makes me crazy too. Okay, can you now see this thing? It says National University Dissertation Proposal.
Yes.
Yay, it's working great. All right, I'm going to turn that P thing on again so that I can show you how this works. And so if you're using your dissertation template, my advice is to never change anything in here because it has all kinds of coding. The only thing that you will change is once you have read this first page, you can get rid of it. Otherwise, it won't number correctly. And what I tell all of my students is keep this blank one to refer to, and then also have the one that you're working with if you have to refer to it later. So we're going to go and take a look at page breaks and section breaks. If you saw this at the very beginning, this is the very first page that we're going to get rid of, and it has a regular page break, and we did the page break by doing the Control Enter. The template also does what's called section breaks, and what section breaks are information pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for a second, saying this is how I want this page or section set up. And this first one is setting it up so you don't have a page number at the very end. So it's a section break. And that's all been invoked. And then next one, we want to get this where we want to have page numbers. And so we put in a section break, and it says section break next page. So now it's going to say anything that happens after I put this section break in is going to be my new information. So when we're doing this in the template here, the template has been programmed, and notice that it has now a page break instead of having a section break. And the reason for that is because everything we want to be the same until we tell them something different. And what has been put in on this one is the lowercase Roman numerals at the end of the page. And so it will continue to be set up like this until we tell Word to do something different. You see, we have another page break here at the bottom. We have the lowercase Roman numerals and so forth. And then we're in doing list of tables, list of figures, and at the end of list of figures, there's another section break. And the section break is there because we're saying now to Word is, thanks for putting those page numbers on, but I don't want to do those lowercase Roman numerals anymore. I want to do regular page numbers at the upper right. And so that now is putting us into a new section break. And that's where you would set those attributes up. And you can do those throughout. We don't have enough time today for me to be able to create that for you and show you how to do the section break. But again, that's another opportunity probably for a video to be able to do that. But I want to tell you that when you're using the template, you should never have to do that because it's already set up for you. So if something happens and you all of a sudden have different page numbers because you're not sure what you do, try doing an undo and see if that will put that back in there. If you're still having problems with it, like I said, I will set up a little video. Also, the Academic Success Center is very helpful at helping with those types of problems. And the other thing that you can do is you can go to Microsoft and Microsoft Word, and they have tutorials there as well. But they're easy to set up. It's just another one of those things that if you don't know how to do it, then you need to have help in being able to set that up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Collins. Two more questions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. The other two questions is sometimes that sometimes they get really big spaces at the bottom of the pages.
Yes.
Can we go over that? It also happens, I'm sorry, Noelle, there was another piece to that real quick. Let me just scroll on down.
Sure.
Noelle mentioned this usually happens when there is a margin change.
Yep. I was just going there. Excellent information. So if there was a margin change and you don't want it there, you can go over to layout and see where it has margin here. You can select if you want it to be a smaller or a larger margin, or you can go to custom margins and make it exactly what you want. Did that help answer that? And thank you for that great hint there.
Noel, please feel free to unmute and make sure that we were able to address that question or have something in the chat as a follow-up.
And I can tell you too, some things that happen at times is you can go down to the end of the page, and if you want to double click, you see that there's a footer there, and then it de-highlights everything else. And here you can work on a footer, and that means this will now show on every page. Sometimes people will create a footer and then they have too much white too much white space there, or too much white space in the header, where you can get rid of that as well. And so if you have any questions about that, you can certainly let me know. And you've given me all these new ideas for making new videos. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we can always continue these conversations in the comments as well, too, as long as you tag Dr. Linda Collins. She'll be able to get those notifications. And as a result of some of these questions, we continue in our Skill Up series. We can continue to provide resources that are helpful for you. We do have about 2 more minutes left. So I'm going to get to this last question I see in the Q&A. So how can we organize the different external reviews of the document? I think this is potentially about
Like
maybe
ref work?
reviewing the track changes, maybe?
Oh, okay. So I thought maybe you were talking about RefWorks or something. Yeah, go ahead. Could you explain that a little bit more?
I will wait just a second.
Well, basically, like if you have different editors who are looking at your document and you don't really want to accept everything because you want to use it as sort of a resource to go back and check and things. So you don't want to clear it away right away, but how can we organize it without cleaning out your document? If there's a way to do that.
Organize it, meaning, I'm not sure I understand.
I would like to save the comments that Dr. Collins made. And then I would like to save the columns that this person made, we separate them out. Put them in
I see. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure on how to separate them out, but I do know if you want to turn off the track changes, I would first then save the ones with all the changes and have those in a different document, and then turn it off for your document that you want to have as a clean document. I would have to look at that. I'll put that as a note too, to see how we could be able to do that, because I have not had that as a question before. Anybody else know how to do that?
Thank you, Yolette. We will go ahead and pop that down. If someone knows how to do it, just let me know in the chat. Oh, it says you can use track change matrix. Okay, we'll have to take a look at that. Thank you, Dr. Walker Roberts. We will take a look at that.
Yeah, it's Emily, if I have time, the track change matrix you can get, but I have students use that where they can put all of the track changes. They just what Dr. Collins just said, accept the ones you want to accept. But if you have them in a running document, you can say this one, I don't want to accept, but then you can organize it and structure it in a track change matrix versus doing it in the Word document itself. I don't think it's possible.
Oh, Dr. Gary, I love that. Share more with me. I love it.
We'll have to take that conversation offline in the interest of time, but I appreciate that, Dr. Walker Roberts. And yes,
thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the questions. And Dr. Gary, thank you for stepping in with some great hints and information as well. And if you have any additional questions, let us know. And we're looking forward to the recording.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Collins. And we really appreciate this hands-on workshop. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at gssc@nu.edu. Pose a question in the comments and tag one of us, and we can help you further. And then, as always, we are trying to provide tools, tips, strategies for academic success. So there will be a survey at the end of this call. Please feel free to fill it out so we know more of what you would like to see. Thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day.